And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to this week's LinkedIn Live by Gain. We're joined this week by the founder and CEO of Venli, Espen Barone. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Really nice to have you on. And we've got quite a juicy topic this week because it's not your usual tech vendor, tech product. It's something a little bit forward thinking. So I'll actually not go into explaining it because I probably can't do it justice, Espen, but you can. So first of all, introduce yourself a little bit and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Espen. I'm the founder of Venli. So we've been building this product for a good 12, 13 months now. And it really started, out of the kind of developments that I saw happening in the hospitality space, which was just a lot of really generic, chatbots. And I think, for hospitality, and again, kind of the core fundamentals of it is that, we want to create a great experience for your guest. And kind of as we started building more products and kind of using the latest infrastructure, we, kind of developed it into a dual side platform, because really all Venli is an AI layer between systems and people who have certain intents, right? So for guests, it'll be asking for towels or asking for recommendations in the city. And then for, staff, naturally it's going to be more workflow oriented things like checking people in, looking up, preferences, or let's say the kind of nitty gritty data entry stuff. So we have just, kind of built that layer to be, super dynamic. It can do a lot of things, and we're building more and more use cases every week. But that's kind of the quick 1 minute version of what Venli is.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you say about building and it being a kind of iterative process, because I've had a little insight into what you're doing. And I know that you started off doing something a bit different, listened to the market, moved with those needs, pivoted slightly, and just came across something that obviously the hoteliers that you're speaking to every day are actually needing. So I think that is a great start, because we can think of products in our mind and then they don't fit, but this has actually gone through a number of changes. So
Yeah. I think, the reason I really, drilled into this use case is because I had, my own experience with voice AI. And I think voice AI is that, layer of interaction that we want to, have in hospitality, where it really can emulate a person very well. Whereas, a chatbot is more for customer service use cases. You go to a website, you want more information, or you need to change your flight or whatever the case is. Like, I think those quick kind of interactions where you just need something is fine. But when you want to feel taken care of, I think the voice layer really adds a lot to the experience. So that was kind of the initial thesis. It was like, voice is a really, really useful tool to interact with guests. And then over time, it really, developed, basically based on, speaking to, hoteliers, asking, okay, great. So we have this voice layer. What can we do with that? A lot of people are replacing call centers. They're replacing, maybe a booking agent. And for our use case, I think we're less about like, cutting costs and replacing people, but really using it as a layer to enhance the guest experience. So what that looks like today, we have a mobile, web app where, instead of just, let's say, emulating a receptionist, this voice can kind of bring a lot of different things to the forefront for the user, meaning it's all context relevant, information. So as an example, if you're asking for towels, it kind of brings them into the loop, showing them, this is what I'm going to send, to the front desk. This is the request that you have. And then 2, if you're asking for, let's say, a room service menu, you can see what the desserts look like, what the, various items are. And I think that's a big, difference in what exists today, where if you, again, just did the pure voice layer, it would be like calling the receptionist. But, again, for, the visual experience, there's nothing there. So that's kind of the layer that we're adding. And then from the staff perspective, that's been a lot of, just kind of, sitting in hotel lobbies, working with our pilots and seeing, okay, so what are you actually spending your time on, and what could we make more efficient? And, what we found is that, although, Muse, as an example, as a PMS, is a very user-friendly and intuitive platform, it's simply, not designed to do bulk actions, and it's not designed to, let's say, I don't know, handle PDFs or, kind of the routine, like, multi-threaded actions. So our goal with the platform is basically to find those bottlenecks and then basically, use AI to be a layer on top of Muse, Opera, your housekeeping system, et cetera. And kind of the vision for, where it's going is, we're going to make it more and more functional based on, the use cases that we build. And ultimately, hopefully you just have a one, kind of tab for all of your systems where you just connect them all and you can, speak and perform actions just in one place.
Yeah, it sounds like a very logical and intuitive step and kind of timely at the moment, because of course we've had some hotels like integrating with things like Alexa, and I feel like that was years ago that people dipped their toe into voice activated systems within the hotel room. There were like mixed results with it, but that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't know. Feels like pre-AI, feels like prehistoric right now. And we're at a point where we have got this ability to have natural conversations now with AI models. So, it's really unusual in that. And, what I wanted to ask you is, we have a lot of tech. The tech ecosystem right now for hoteliers, I think it's like the number one pain for hoteliers is there's just so much out there. There's so much competition. There's so many niches. Not saying that everything's not useful. It is, but it's overwhelming. So what makes your product, what makes Venli not just another nice to have, but something that hoteliers really should be looking into?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is that we're not a rip and replace. We're really just kind of a layer on top of what you already have. So it's not about changing how you do things, other than doing it maybe a little bit faster, a little bit easier. But we're not, let's say, ripping up a contract that you had last year and it's a 3-year kind of deal, right? So number one, it's really, really easy to set up. We've made it like an OAuth system. So you basically log in, you click one button for Muse, and it's done. And then from, I guess, a vision perspective, like our architecture makes it really, really easy to build new features, right? So in the past, when, let's say, software company A had, new use case for the roadmap, it would take a lot of development work, a lot of, custom kind of, functions. And the way that we built it is that it's more instruction based. So, we give it a baseline, connection to a lot of different, points in your system. And then we keep you in the loop. So any updates or deletes are obviously done by people. And then, for what it can actually do, it's basically just a prompt, right? It's like, go into this system, change this field, do X, Y, and Z. So for me, I think, as we grow as a company and as we grow in terms of functionality, it's a really good investment because, we're basically growing at the rate that AI grows, right? So whether it's, Claude or OpenAI or any of the other foundation models, as they become smarter and more capable, we're essentially just the layer that is making it useful for, the hotel's use case.
So kind of just supercharging what they've already got rather than yet another part of the tech stack, bringing it into the future. Yeah. So yeah, the thought that comes into my mind is security and safety, because we're talking about guest data here and we're talking about AI, and sometimes those things together just ring alarm bells for people. So how can you protect that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, I mean, by design, I have worked in tech for, the past 8 years or so, mainly in a commercial aspect. But for the last 4, I've been, obviously a little bit more technical, learning how to code. And now I sit in Cursor pretty much every day. And, Cursor is basically a coding agent that goes into your code base, can read and, write basically code. And the way that they've set it up is incredibly intuitive. And we have kind of mirrored that control within our system, which means that, you can obviously and I think over time, as we trust these models and our customers trust them to do things more autonomously, what Cursor calls it is YOLO mode, which is, basically, hey, we trust it's not going to go in and delete, the things that we don't want. But, the way that it's set up now is basically for, again, any changes in your, data, you get an overview of what it's about to do, and you actually have a human to click it. And when you set up the accounts within Felix OS, as an admin, you can basically designate who has access to what endpoints. And what that means is, front desk will have access to reservations as an example, but maintenance will have access to tasks and ticketing and things of that nature. So you can designate what parts of the software they actually have access to.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's a really important, question for hoteliers out there perhaps watching this. Is like, it's such an important issue, and we are going into times where things are going very fast. And I think it's an important question to ask any tech provider. I would encourage people always to ask that when they're dealing with tech providers in general, but definitely when it comes to AI. So thank you for that. We've spoken about maintenance, we've spoken about front desk, we've spoken about its guest facing. So does it replace any tools in the tech stack? A hotelier is going to kind of save any money here or any hassle in terms of their tech stack?
Well, what's funny is, as a team, I think it's we are kind of the wave that I think a lot of software companies are a little scared of, because we have already, spoken to, certain teams, and they're like, hey, like this does maybe a third of what our other vendor does. What about the other 2/3? And we build things really quickly. And what that means is, for us, it's not a huge lift to get those other 2/3 done. So in the case where, we're solving for one use case that you're already paying a vendor for, we can basically expand the functionality pretty quickly to, replace that system. But the goal is really to, kind of fit in your tech stack rather than build and build and build to, replace everything else. That's not the point.
Okay, got it. So let's just go back a bit to how it's staff facing and then it's guest facing, because obviously there's two sides to this. So can you explain us again, just kind of one by one, what the use cases are for staff, first of all?
Yeah, so for staff, it's really designed today for the front desk, housekeeping, maintenance, and then back office, so operations. And what that means is, for front desk, as an example, we're saving anywhere from like 5 to 6 hours a week just on, data entry. And then we make things faster. So as an example, Opera is, a system that has a lot of very nuanced and, kind of detailed, places in its system that you have to put, different things. And what we can basically offer is a faster check-in experience. So as an example, in the morning, a lot of people will check arrivals, and then allocate rooms. We can kind of pull that data and then suggest obviously an action based on that. So what used to take maybe an hour in the morning now takes 3 minutes. For housekeeping and maintenance, I think the main use case is that Felix OS is also a web app that you can have on their phone. So if you think about, the different languages that people speak, so it can be Spanish or Polish or whatever, they can basically drop a voice note and say, room 304 is clean, or I've fixed the lamp in room 305. And what that allows people to do is basically get off of pen and paper, or, basically, get more use out of the actual tools that you invested in. So if you just think about from a high level, a manager, or let's say a GM, you're going to get more complete data because people are actually, updating the records and kind of giving more transparency into, what they do. And then again, like kind of more broadly, this can be used as an insights tool. So, you have a lot of dashboards in these different tools like Muse or Opera or, Software C. What we can do is let you ask questions about your data. And I think that's a huge part of, what we're learning now is a really interesting use case, especially for, people, let's say an operator with 40, 50 properties. If we can, aggregate that data and give you kind of not a dashboard, but a custom kind of collection of data that you can interact with, I think that is the future of what you would call a dashboard. It's really that kind of self-generated insights, conversation, really.
Yeah, I can see that, and I can see we're all getting more used to retrieving data like that as well. We don't really want to look on dashboards and Excels anymore. We actually just want to ask ChatGPT to give us a summary, and then maybe another one and a different one. So yeah, I can see that. And I think as well, the easier that data input is for staff, the more likely you are to get very rich data from your staff, right? Because, typing something in manually, or you go and you check someone in, and maybe you greet them personally, you talk to them, and you might have a lot of insights about them. So I can imagine staff using that to kind of go back, get the app out, and like you say, leave a voice note where they can actually get very detailed, because you can leave a lot more detail and nuance in a voice note than you ever will be able to typing. Like, who can be bothered to type anymore? So
I know. Yeah.
And would that data be fed back into the PMS to be used for guest personalization, or how does that work?
Yeah. So as an example, you're at the front desk, guest has a complaint, or let's say you just want to like update, the guest profile. You would simply say, the guest name or their room number, and then again, whatever it needs to route. So based on both their, user profile, so what function they have in the hotel, and then again, the reasoning of the agent, it will just go in and update that record.
That's cool. And I can imagine for housekeeping staff, that's also very, very handy. Good. So we spoke a bit about the staff side. So what about the guest side? Because I'll be honest, like every other person I speak to at an event who's a founder is about chatbots. Chatbot. It's like dime a dozen. So what is it? Just a chatbot? What is it?
Not quite. So again, in the world of guest-facing tech, you have traditional, web apps, mobile apps, where you have information about your hotel, your services, your amenities, and then now everyone's basically layering a chatbot where people can ask different things. And the best version of that is an agentic chatbot, which is kind of the highest level that I've seen in the market, where it can understand your requests and actually go into your PMS and change things, or and notify the right person, basically. And then on the voice side, again, it's the same idea, but it's voice only. So this is good for receptionists. It's good for booking agents. It's basically automate that phone call. And the point of our platform is we're merging kind of both functionalities. So both the agentic side, the voice side, and the visual side. So again, you can make more money or increase your RevPAR. I think, as an example, I stay at a lot of different hotels, and I would say 90% of them have a brochure and a chatbot. The brochures that people walk by, I don't know what the conversion rate would be on that, but I would assume pretty low. And the point of our platform is really to give the guest really rich visual information based on the conversation. So it's, again, when you're ordering room service, seeing the room service and having someone to talk to. Another great example was we spoke to someone about their spa and like what the bottlenecks were there. And even though they had a QR code in their room and they had, obviously the services listed, 90% of them wouldn't book through that, that route, because people had questions about the oils, or they had questions about, the nuances of X, Y, and Z. So it's just important to know that, like, our goal with the platform is not just to give a great experience for the guest. It's also to, make you more money, right? Actually give the guest the context that they need to make that purchase. So we think, the tablet version is the best experience. I think a lot of vendors either obviously offer it today, or have tried in the past with an Alexa or whatever. But, having this in 35 languages, having it, as smooth as we've designed it, it is quite new. So, we are in very, very early stages in terms of like usage data, but the signs really point to, if we can make a more engaging tool to, for your guests to engage with both your hotel and the outside world, it should have some pretty positive effects.
Yeah, I've seen some stats about how visual images, psychologically, it's human psychology, isn't it? You see something, you're more likely to choose it. It just brings that familiarity. So I can imagine how that could be for hotel services. And I just wanted to go back a bit to what you said about outside services. So is this sort of, you've got your tablet, you're talking to it, it's suggesting things, I'm guessing based on your guest profile. So it kind of knows you, if you're a family, if you're business, whatever. And then when it suggests the outside services, what does that look like?
Yeah, so the experiences industry is actually massive. I don't have the stats on the top of my head, but if you think about, the information that people have through ChatGPT or Google Maps, like, people have access to the, various information, but people will still go to the front desk and ask. And so what we're, kind of positioning this as is taking revenue from that, kind of referral. So that's not just from the internal partners that you have or that you've made contracts with, but we also have a Viator integration. So in the case they ask about the attractions in the area here in Copenhagen, it would be Tivoli or, let's say, a castle or something like that. When they click on that link and go to Viator, there's an affiliate commission that comes back to the hotel. So, again, early days on stats, but again, it could be, let's say 3 to 5% lift based on that interaction alone.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's covering a lot of different pains, I feel, in a hotel, from like your data entry to like ease of communication, ease of getting information from the PMS, housekeeping, all of that. And then on the guest side, you're also providing this really amazing experience where they're going to enjoy themselves more, be understood more, and also hopefully buy more from your hotel. Because as we know, like ancillary revenue, hotels just can't survive on rooms alone anymore most of the time. So ancillary revenue is super important. So I like to see that. So we're coming up to the end of the live. If people want to pilot Venli or get to know more, like, how should they contact you?
We can go to our website. There's a little bit more information, a little more detailed, but at the bottom, there's a Let's Talk button. So just schedule 30 minutes with us. We're currently operating mostly in the Nordics, but again, for us, it's mostly about working with the industry, learning about, their needs and their wants, and obviously designing a great experience for them. So by no means is there a landlocked kind of area that we're focusing on.
Okay. Is it a button for a chatbot?
No, we have no chatbots on our website, funny enough.
Good. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And thanks for everybody watching. Contact Espen if you want to know more. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.